day after you-know-who used the White House coronavirus press briefing to knock down criticism that he botched the response, he announced yesterday that he's going after the organization who he claims really got us into this mess. Take a look.
Today, I'm instructing my administration to halt funding of the World Health Organization while a review is conducted to assess the World Health Organization's role in severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus. The reality is that the WHO failed to adequately obtain, vet, and share information in a timely and transparent fashion. It would have been so easy to be truthful. And so much death has been caused by their mistakes.
God. Well, I know he likes to talk about total authority and stuff, but, you know, since 2018, the U.S. Seat on the WHO's executive board has been vacant. Okay, we haven't, so even if they had something to tell us, who are they going to tell? You know, it's crazy. So does he have the power to cut off funding, Sonny, just out of the blue because he's in the mood to do it?
Well, you know, I think it's unclear whether or not King Trump has the authority to unilaterally halt funding for an international institution like the World Health Organization. Of course, congressional Democrats are arguing that he doesn't. I do think, however, that it is possible that he can, through his limited authority, reroute perhaps funding to other international organizations, and that's probably something that he's going to look at. What this seems to me, though, Whoopi, to be is, you know, part of the Trump blame game. This is something that he does because he doesn't want to accept responsibility for this lackluster response, because American lives and deaths are, you know, they're squarely on his shoulders. But if you think about what the WHO did do, the WHO offered the United States a test. And the United States declined, through the Trump administration, that test and asked the CDC to come up with a coronavirus test. That test failed. To date, only 1% of Americans have been tested for the coronavirus. That also falls squarely on the shoulders of the Trump administration. So the failures, as I see it, are on the Trump administration, not on the World Health Organization.
Right. So the U.S. response is under the microscope right now, and you would think that the WHO needs to be looked at as well, Megan. Is that your feeling?
Yeah, good morning. Yes, I mean, you know, I'm the first person to concede. Good morning. I'm the first person to concede I was not, and still don't claim to be, an expert in the World Health Organization. But given what President Trump did yesterday, I started doing a lot of research and a lot of reading. And there's some really interesting New York Times articles that I really implore our audience to read that bring up things like, as recently as in January, the World Health Organization was tweeting that it was safe to have person-to-person contact between two people, and you wouldn't necessarily get COVID 2019. And again, that's something that they tweeted out. This director is a man named Dr. Tedros, who covered up for China for a cholera outbreak in Ethiopia that ended up to a lot of Africans dying. He seems to be someone that was lobbied hard on the behalf of China. And look, the more I read about what's going on in the World Health Organization, the less I felt like they were doing the due diligence of global health. I do think America should have a role in our global health. I just don't necessarily think it should be with the WHO. This seems to be one of those industries and one of those organizations that, unfortunately, politics is playing a part in the background as well. And do I think it's you know, Trump's playing politics to a point where he wants to defund it. But I do think there's a lot of really legitimate arguments here. And I think it's why it's important, you know, when I hear that a doctor is letting Ethiopians die from cholera because of political purposes, I think any rational person would question that. And I do think there's this long history of covering up for the COVID outbreak. And look, I'm seeing a lot of people tweeting saying China lied, people died. I do think we need to look at our own response, but this started in China. This didn't start in Ohio. And it's not like America wasn't alerting the rest of the world and having a giant organization cover up for them. And it looks like that's what happened with the World Health Organization in China.
Right. Well, don't forget, we also had you-know-who say what a great job China was doing. So I think bad information.
Yes, his relationship with China is more than
crazy.
questionable.
Yeah,
and his relationship with President Xi is more than questionable. And I think that is definitely a discussion that needs to be had at other times. But I completely agree with that, Whoopi.
Right. Cool. Hey, Joy, do you think this is just another move out of his political playbook?
Well, of course it's political. I mean, why do this in the middle of a pandemic? Why not wait until it's over before playing the blame game? I mean, he can cut funding, shift the blame, and claim that he's a stable genius, but nothing changes the fact that he has bungled this pandemic from the giddy app, and now people are dying. And remember, he only cuts funding if it benefits him politically. He now refuses to bail out the post office, for example, which does a remarkable job, and that's because mail-in ballots spell the doom for the Republican Party and for him. And when it's easy to vote, Republicans lose, and they know it. That's why they're constantly trying to suppress the vote. And that really speaks to this cutting the funding for the post office, which does an incredible job. And by the way, millions of jobs will be lost. So yes, everything with him is how does it benefit Donald Trump? That's his end game.